Good morning, Denise. Welcome. If you don't mind sharing for us this morning, letting others know that UBU with Dr. Johnson is on, and today's subject is love languages. So please invite others to come and share. To be along, Brother Pete, good morning. Welcome to UBU. Invite others to share with us this morning. UBU with Dr. Johnson, sponsored by Life Water, and should be talking about love language this morning. So if anyone needs to know about love languages, let them know this is the place to be. Good morning, Keisha. Welcome to UBU with Dr. Johnson this morning, discussing love languages. If you know someone who has a need to discover their love language, this is a good place to be. So invite others to come be a part of our time together. Good morning, Ebony. Welcome to UBU. Tisa, good morning. Welcome to UBU. Love languages this morning. If you know somebody that needs to discover their love language, it's a good place for them to be. This is an exceptional place for them to be. So we invite them to come be a part. Welcome to UBU. This is Shannon Mitchell. Welcome to UBU. Invite others to come be a part. UBU, Life Water Outreach this morning with Dr. Johnson, talking about love languages. Valencia, good morning. Welcome to UBU with Dr. Johnson, Outreach, Life Water. Love languages. Somebody want to know what their love language is? This is a good place to be this morning to invite others to come be a part of our UBU time together. So if you share with someone, Texas in the house. Phaedra, we welcome you this morning to UBU, our Outreach, Life Water Inc. with Dr. Johnson. Our subject is love languages. Love languages. Wow, I'm excited about what is going to happen in this cyberspace on this morning. LaKendra is here. Thank you for sharing, Sister Ebony. Thank you for sharing. Arizona is in the house. God bless you this morning. Arnetta from Arizona. Welcome to UBU Outreach, Life Water Inc. with Dr. Johnson. This morning, love languages, love languages, love languages. So welcome to UBU. In just a moment, we're going to commence our time together with Dr. Johnson. And we know that she has outlined a great morning for us. So welcome, welcome. All right, so welcome Dr. Johnson this morning as she comes to lead us in our time together in UBU Outreach. And our subject this morning is love languages. Dr. Johnson, welcome to our time together. If you unmute your mic, and time is on you.
Good morning. Thank you again for having me. I want to say good morning to everyone who is watching with us today. So, of course, as you all know, February is considered Love Month. We have Valentine's Day quickly approaching on Monday. And while love should be celebrated every day, we specifically choose the month of February to highlight and express our love in different ways. So today, I would like to share with you information about love languages. Some of you may have seen different things about love languages online, or you may have heard other people discussing it. So today, I want to share a little bit about how to determine your love language, as well as how you should use love languages in relation to other people. So before we talk about how you can determine your love language, let's talk a little bit about what they are. And also, I want to point out, if you have any questions as we're going along the presentation, jot them down because at the end, I will be taking questions about love languages. So please make any notes that you may have or write down any questions that you may have. So what is a love language? So love language is a concept that was developed by Dr. Gary Chapman. He actually created a book about the love languages. And what this concept is a language that helps us to understand the different ways that we can express love as well as determine how we desire to be loved. So here are the 5 love languages. First, you have words of affirmation. You have physical touch, quality time, gifts, and acts of service. So let's take a look at what each one of these mean. And while I'm going through it, make note of what you think may be your primary love language. The first one is words of affirmation. So words of affirmation is considered to be any verbal or written form of affection. So words of affirmation include compliments from your loved ones, any type of verbal encouragement, words of appreciation. So this can be done whether it be in notes, text messages. Some people still write letters. So words of affirmation can include things like saying, I love you, or I appreciate you. Thank you for being who you are, or you look great today, or you are amazing. So any form of verbal form, verbal affection, verbal or written affection. Next, you have physical touch. So physical touch includes any type of physical signs of affection. So words of affirmation was all about verbal or written affection, but physical touch is all about physical signs of affection. So this is feeling appreciated or valued with touch or physical intimacy. This includes holding hands, maybe kisses, hugs, cuddles, or intimacy with a partner. Next, you have quality time. So quality time is all about spending time with a loved one, doing things that you really enjoy. So this includes active listening. So having a conversation where your loved one seems to be interested or invested in communicating with you. Making eye contact, giving someone or having someone's undivided attention, where it's all about the two of you and the time that you're spending together. This also includes having meaningful conversations, as well as just sharing in different activities. So that can be going to the movies together, or just going out to dinner, maybe watching a TV show together. So anything that you do to spend time with someone that you love. Next, you have gifts. So again, words of affirmation was all about verbal affection. Physical touch was all about physical. Gifts is a tangible symbol of love and appreciation. So this is where you appreciate when someone makes a thoughtful gesture, or if someone does a random surprise. And this includes noticing what a loved one likes or desires and being able to give it to them. So for example, maybe you know that your loved one really likes ice cream. So on your way home, you decide to pick up ice cream for them. Or you know that your loved one really likes tennis shoes and you buy them tennis shoes. Or if your loved one knows that you like something, they give this to you. So gifts is all about showing your love and appreciation by giving someone something. So next you have acts of service. So acts of service is all about finding a way to make your loved one's life easier. So for example, doing something that you know that will help make their workload lighter or make their day a little bit better. So this can include helping them cross off things to do on their to-do list. For example, maybe you know that your loved one has a really busy day. So you decide, I'm going to go and wash the dishes so that they don't have to worry about it. Or I'm going to go and pick up their clothes from the cleaning company. Or I'm going to go and do laundry. So basically, you're doing anything that you know will actually help that person in making their day a little bit better. And the best way to know what acts of service means is remembering this quote: actions speak louder than words. So, acts of service is all about putting action behind your love and making sure that you're doing things to help the other person. So, as you take a look at the five love languages, it's important that you identify which one is your primary way of wanting to be loved. Now, it is important to remember that you may have more than one love language. For example, you may know that you really value words of affirmations from others. But then some of you may say, well, no, that's not as important to me. I'm more of an acts of service person. I need you to show me that you love me. Some of you may be thinking, well, no, I need gifts. I need to know that you really appreciate me. Or I need you to hug me. I need you to hold my hand so that I know that you love me. You can have more than one love language. However, most of us have a primary love language, meaning this is the way that we strongly desire to be loved. It's also important that you know the love language of the people around you as well, because we can't love others using our love language all the time. We have to love others using their love language. Now, you may be thinking, well, I like words of affirmation, so maybe my sister likes words of affirmation. Well, she may, but what if her way of being loved is more so physical touch or quality time? So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to not only your love language, but also the love language of the people around you. Now, how can you find out your love language? Some of you may actually already know. You may already know what your primary love language is. But, and I'll share the link shortly, you can actually take a quiz online that was developed by Dr. Gary Chapman to help you determine what your love language is. And what I recommend is that when you take the quiz, share it with the people around you. See if they knew what your love language was. And then also have them to take the quiz as well. And once you have determined your love language and their love language, brainstorm on different ways on how you can actually show that to the people around you. Now, I also want to talk about how important it is that you can practice your own love language for self love. So far, we've been talking about how other people can show these love languages, but you can also use these for self love. So let's take a look at that. So when it comes to self-love, it's all about what we've talked about before. If you were a part of, I think maybe the session that we did back in November, which was about self-care. So self-love is an act of self-care. So let's take a look at how you can show these things or how you can express these love languages to yourself. The first one, which is words of affirmation. You can express words of affirmation by coming up with positive affirmations that you say to yourself throughout the day. You can also practice positive self talk. So, positive self talk is all about saying things that are encouraging to you. Maybe you know that you have a difficult project coming up or you have a presentation to do. So, positive self talk would be saying things like, you know, you're smart, you got this, or you're talented. Anything that's going to encourage you to do well. So next you have receiving gifts. You can treat yourself to something nice, whether it be treating yourself to a nice meal, or maybe there's a sweater or something that you want. I even know some people who buy flowers for themselves. So there's no limit to the gifts that you can give to yourself. Next, you have physical touch. You can go to the spa or you can give yourself spa treatment. You can do yoga, you can do facial masks, you can do anything that is considered helpful to your body. So, for example, sometimes in physical touch, it may mean making sure that you're eating healthy, making sure that you're exercising. Those are all acts of self love. Then you have acts of service. So this is all about getting organized, planning your self-care, checking things off your to-do list. And I like to point out with acts of service, it's so important that you're giving yourself grace to get things done, that you're not being hard on yourself about not getting things done in a timely manner, but that you're being patient with yourself, that you're giving yourself time to get things done. So acts of service is all about making sure that you're doing what you need to do, but then you're also giving yourself grace for the things that you may not have the time to do at the moment. And then the last one is quality time. So quality time with yourself looks like doing things alone that you really enjoy. Um, Relaxing, taking time to meditate, taking time to listen to music. And my favorite form of quality time is making sure that you're removing all distractions. Sometimes we get a little bit uncomfortable when we're alone. We get a little bit uncomfortable with not being in contact with others. But sometimes you need to unplug and just spend time with yourself and focus on the things that you really like or the things that you really enjoy doing. So before I move to the next slide, I would love to see in the comments, do any of you know your primary love language already? And if you could just comment them in the comment section, I just would love to know if any of you know, or if you haven't taken the quiz, just based off of the information shared, what do you think your primary love language is? And I'll go back to the first slide. What do you think your love language is? Words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, gifts, or acts of service. I'll tell you, my primary love language is words of affirmation. And I've taken the quiz several times throughout my life, and words of affirmation has always been my primary love language. I'm not sure if the comments have stopped on my end, but I can't see any of the comments coming in. Dr. May, are you able to see the comments?
I'm here with you. I see comments. I haven't seen any recently.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. There it is. Sister Valencia Lewis says they're words of affirmation.
Okay.
So at least you have one person still in tune.
I
There
see
you
it
go.
coming in
Sister
now.
Bella Green. There they go. They're coming in.
Okay.
Okay.
So words of affirmation, acts of service. Do any of you know what may be the primary love language of maybe the people closest to you? Well, if you don't know your love language, or if you don't know the love languages of the people around you, here's the website that you can go to actually take the quiz. And you don't have to have the exact website. You can actually just type in 5 love languages and you'll see the quiz come up. It's a very short quiz. It won't take a lot of your time, but it's very insightful because it really does help you focus or to figure out what it is that you really desire, especially if you don't know. But the gift of it is sharing it with the people around you, just so that they'll know, so that they'll know what you will appreciate the most. And then exchange results with them so that you'll know what they desire as well. And the great thing about this is there are different categories. So, for example, you can do it just for yourself. You can take the ones that are for people who are in relationships. There's even some for children that you can use. So maybe if you have a child and you want them to do the love language quiz, they can do it. So they are tailored for where you are in your life, as well as your age, as well as your relationship with other people. So it's a very unique tool. It's really insightful and helpful. So again, you can type in this website, www.5lovelanguages.com, or you can type in just 5 love languages and you should see the quiz come up with no problem. Does anyone have any questions about the love languages? I know the information is pretty straightforward, but do any of you have any questions, or if you have any just comments about the love languages, please feel free to put them in the chat box. I do see that some of you put words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, physical touch, the huggers, um, and then words of affirmation and quality time. Okay. Do any of you have any questions about the love languages or about the quiz? Or maybe you just have a comment that you want to share. And this is love languages is usually a part of couples counseling, but again, it's also helpful for self-love. It's also helpful for just knowing the love languages of your family members, or just knowing your best friend's love language. Just because a lot of times we may think that people want to be loved the way that we want to be loved, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you do have people that are in relationship with each other that have the same primary love language, but most of the time, not so much. So it's important to know that you can't expect people to have the exact same love language that you may have. Any questions? Dr. May, did you have any questions or any comments about the love languages?
No, we, as you said earlier, this is the month for love. I mean, every month is a month of love, but this is a month that we recognize it as, you know, Valentine, and people are doing a lot of things um, to care or to show that they care for the others. And you talked about love languages, and I want you to go back a little bit in your presentation to where those love languages are listed um, together. Okay, there you go. You have words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, gifts, and acts of service. And you mentioned that if you're in relationships with someone who have the same love languages that you have, would you consider that a positive or not so positive? How is that considered or should be considered if you have a person who need um, quality time, then of course that works well together. And I guess person need words of affirmation. Is that considered something if we have the same needs? Is that something that's great or
It's considered to be great because most of the time, if we're desiring something, we have a great way of understanding if somebody else desires it as well. Now, it can be possible that you may desire words of affirmation, but not know how to actually give it as well. So I think that's why it's so important to have a conversation about which one of these love languages is hard. Maybe a person doesn't really know how to show physical touch just because maybe growing up there wasn't a lot of physical touch within their homes. Maybe mom or dad didn't hug as much. um, I'll share this story. When I went to high school, I went to a different high school, and the first thing I noticed on my very first day was that the students would say I love you to each other. And I remember thinking, okay, which was a little bit different from the middle school that I went to. You didn't hear people walking down the hall saying, I love you. So being there, I just remember that first day thinking, wow, okay. So it was just a difference in the environment, but that was the love language that they were most comfortable sharing with each other. So sometimes we enter into environments, we enter into relationships where people are comfortable showing a specific love language that you may not be comfortable showing. So it's important to know if any of these is would be considered difficult, and then finding ways that you can actually practice these particular love languages.
Okay. So Ebony has said that so conversation then would be considered key or is key in communicating love languages.
Yes, definitely. It's important to talk about what it is that you consider your love language, just so that the people around you can work on showing it to you in that way. And then same for you, making sure that you're practicing whatever their love language is as well.
How do you adjust when someone, um, as you mentioned, someone may, uh, one may need physical touch or quality time, or one may need gifts, and the others is not really into giving gifts. Um, how from both sides? How is there an adjustment from both sides? Let's say gifts. Should it be one say, okay, no gifts? You don't give them, so I don't expect it. Or the one that doesn't give them, say, oh, since you expect it, I give them. How do you mediate between that expectation on either end?
I think all relationships require adjustments, just because not everything is going to be easy. So, therefore, if your partner, your brother, sister, or whoever requires a certain love language, it's important that you work together to try and work on that. I often tell people you should never sacrifice the things that are non-negotiable or that are significant to you. So therefore, if a person needs physical touch, or a person needs quality time, or a person needs any of these, it's up to that other person to decide, is this something that I can do? And even if it doesn't come easy, are you willing to work on it just out of love for that person? Now, of course, we can't expect people to go from, never saying I love you or never using words of affirmation to just change overnight. It's a process. So, I always tell people you have to be patient, but there should be some form of effort being shown.
So when you have expectation, we'll get to Novella's question that's on the screen there. But when you have expectation, um, and a person, let's say a person said, I told you I needed acts of service, or I shared with you, rather, I need acts of service. Um, it should a time frame, how do you frame the time where you give a person an opportunity to perform? Because you mentioned, okay, a person that he or she was not used to saying I love you doesn't start saying it perhaps overnight. How do you frame and give a person an opportunity to perform? And what should, when I have an expectation of you and I've shared with you, I need words of affirmation. How do you get to the point where you give people an opportunity to say, okay, here's a space you need to perform that? Because some people do have the expectation, wow, it's going to happen, I didn't hear this yesterday or this evening and you just told me about it. So how do you deal with that?
I think it's important that you're patient, but at the same time, effort is important. So while I may not be able to make it happen overnight, you should at least see that I am mindful of it, that I am putting in the work to get there. So there is no specific time frame. I think that depends on the person in terms of how much time you're willing to give, but that effort is extremely important in knowing that, okay, you just told me yesterday that you wanted more acts of service. So I may not the next day, help you with the laundry or help you with the dishes, but over time you should see that I am trying to get there. So it really depends on the person in terms of how much time are you willing to give that person, or just figuring out, does this person actually care, or are they actually showing signs that they're trying to get there, that they're trying to get to the point that I need them to be.
Okay. Very good. Sister Novella had a question, and her question was, can words of affirmation be considered needy in some relationships?
It
That's
can
a
be.
very good question.
Because sometimes words of affirmation, if it's unhealthy, it can be a sign of needing validation from other people. And that's why it's so important that we practice the self love aspect of words of affirmation, because it can be needy if you're needing that person to constantly affirm you every single hour or every single moment, just because you're needing that validation or you're needing that affirmation. So, with all of these, there's an unhealthy aspect of it. So, it's all about balance. It's all about making sure that you're not expecting something that is too much, if that makes sense. So, and this is with anything, there's always a such thing as being too much. So that's why it's so important that the self-love is there, because when you have that self-love, you're not only looking for it in other people. So yes, words of affirmation, if it's something that you're needing every single moment from your partner or from your loved one, then that could be a sign of there being something unhealthy within that relationship. But not just for words of affirmation, it could be physical touch, quality time, gifts, acts of service. So there is a thin line, I would say, between having these desires and then needing it too much. So that's why that self-love is important.
Because as you say that, and and I appreciate you pointing out uh, that there could easily be an imbalance that tipped the scale uh, to the other side, and I think it goes to it goes along with being said that if a person offers no words of affirmation, then it could be also a sign, or could it be a sign that that person have a problem because they for some reason they can't offer words of affirmation, or if a person doesn't desire physical touch. So there should be a balance. I hear, because I like the fact that you point out, you're right, if a person needs it, it could be a sign that that person is needing, as you put it, uh, they're needing validation from someone, which could be unhealthy, because now someone has to validate you, and that could be a sign of all kind of insecurities and whatever may go along with needing those validations. But if you're with a person that never desires to give you words of affirmation, or if it's gifts you need or quality time, then it also could mean that it's not that you're needy, but that person could be, I don't know how you would describe that, but how would you describe that using that scenario?
It could mean that that person is incapable of showing that particular love language. And that incapability can be a result of not knowing how to do it, or maybe not ever noticing or not experiencing that particular love language. And it goes back to a lot of times childhood experiences, maybe experiences with other people in the past. So not being able to give it can be a sign of insecurities. It could be a sign of just not knowing how. Again, sometimes people grow up in homes where people don't say I love you, or people don't hug, or people don't, embrace or hold hands, or even quality time. Sometimes families don't spend time together, So a lot of times, if someone doesn't know how to do it, that could be an issue. But again, that's where that work comes in, where you realize, okay, my partner or my loved one really does desire this particular thing. So therefore, I have to work on it.
Okay, excellent. Ebony has a question, and she asks, does your love language change with age and experience?
It can. It can. I mentioned earlier that I've taken this quiz several times, and my primary love language is always words of affirmation. However, what I have noticed is that the other four have changed over time, meaning the order of them have changed. So maybe once before it was words of affirmation and then quality time. But then later on, it's words of affirmation and then acts of service. So sometimes with experience and as you get older, you probably value things a little bit more, or you probably value things a little bit differently according to where you are in life. So it can change with age and experience, or it could just you could be set forever that it just stays the same.
Wow, that's good because I think anyone that have any age, they would have to admit that the values sometimes do change what you value, especially in the context of what we're talking about. There may be a time that um, words of affirmation didn't matter, but then um, you start to age, or you deal with a particular thing, and it's nice to hear from the person whom you love in relationship with share with you words that is affirming, as well as you know quality time may not have mattered at one point, may not have been very high on the list, but then there comes a time where you're like, okay, it things have evolved. I want the quality time. So I think embracing change uh, and acknowledging experience, it's always worthy and beneficial in relationship, because it's the context in which we're talking. I think it's important to embrace change and expectation and to recognize them, and then going back to that thing that's so difficult to do is communicate that. And I think communication is very difficult. And I think perhaps we ought to take time to deal with communication at some point moving forward in our time in UBU, because communicating how we feel and understanding how our loved one feels based on what we've communicated, and embracing that change, and because of experience. And I think this leads us to this question here. uh, it says, so can past trauma determine your views on different love languages?
Yes, your past traumas in reference to relationships or your upbringing can definitely determine your views on love languages. So, again, there may have been past situations where you tried to show words of affirmation, or you tried to create space for quality time, or you valued acts of service. And if the person that you were in relationship with did not appreciate those things, sometimes you start to think, well, maybe that doesn't matter. Or you may even think that your love language isn't important, or that you don't deserve to have that love from anyone just based off of experiences where maybe people denied you of those particular things. So our past traumas are so important for us to make note of, or just to acknowledge, because it does play a huge role in how we express our love as well as how we experience love from others. Um, a lot of people, when they are shown these love languages, they don't really know how to receive it. They may think, okay, well, why are you giving me a gift? Are you looking for something? Or why all of a sudden are you trying to spend so much time with me? And those type of negative thoughts can be a result of past situations where things weren't so great for you. So therefore you're not sure if you quite deserve the love languages, even if it's something that you actually desire. So the past trauma, that's something that a lot of people, whether it be in your family relationships, your romantic relationships, it's so important that you discuss those traumas, that you communicate, as Dr. May was just saying, that communication is so important, because the more you communicate, the more you start realizing why, things are the way that they are, or why you perceive things differently. Um, so I don't know, maybe we can discuss communication and trauma at some point, just to dig a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, Dr. Johnson, when I think of the things that we've discussed about love languages this morning, which is great. Uh, and we, in the context of Phaedra's question concerning trauma, how much does and we talk about love because it's Valentine's, but we know we should love always. How much does this have to do with individuals loving themselves and being comfortable? Because even in the context, it depends on your environment. If you're a Christian, there's a thin line between being self-absorbent when you talk about loving yourself, uh, or borderlining on some other negative way is seen when you say love yourself, because we've always taught to love others. But what happens, or what do you think, love language, the expectations of it have to do with us uh loving ourselves? Because and I read this somewhere that says when you decide to truly love yourself honestly and unapologetically, you will break down barriers and knock down walls. Doors will begin to open for you that you never knew were closed. And I think that being a teacher of my favorite book, called the Bible, and teaching people to love others as they love themselves, the scriptures teach that it's hard for you to love someone else the way they should be loved when you have a hard time loving yourself the way you ought to be loved. I mean, can you just speak to that? Because so many people are perhaps ashamed to love themselves, or feel like they are too self-absorbent, as I said earlier, if they love themselves. Can you speak to us loving? Because you said we can practice these uh, love languages on ourselves. And so can you just deal with that for a moment?
I always tell people, very similar to the quote that you just gave there, when you actively love yourself, it actually gives you more insight into what you're going to accept from other people. When you love yourself, you know you better than anybody else. So therefore you know what it is that you need. And when you start to really appreciate that, it helps you to realize what's not acceptable from other people. And it also helps you to actually receive love a lot more just because you're taking care of yourself. A lot of people do think that self love, is being selfish, but it's not being selfish. You should love yourself, because the number one thing is, if you don't love yourself, then you really don't know how to love others. You really don't know how to actually receive love from others, because the thing there is, if you don't love yourself, then you may start thinking that you don't deserve love at all. So when it comes to loving yourself, there's nothing to be ashamed about. There's nothing to feel as if it's selfish in any way, because everything that you do, meaning every dream that you have, everything that you put out into the world, is a result of how do you view yourself. If you don't have that self-love, it's very hard to actually be who you want to be in the world. So therefore, when it comes to showing yourself these love languages, these are the things that you need to do as an act of self-care, so that you can be the best version of yourself. So that self-love is something that I talk about with all of my clients, because self-love, when once you really dive into it, that's where you start to resolve your traumas. That's where you start to figure out, what is my love language? You start to figure out, what is it that I need? What is it that I can offer, to my family? Or what is it that I can offer to society? It's really the foundation of figuring out your place in the world. It's the foundation. So that self-love piece is by far the most important thing. And that may sound selfish, but really, when you think about it, you're giving yourself that self-love to not only be the best version of yourself for you, but it really is for the people around you as well. So they go hand in hand.
Thank you. For that. I guess a question I'd like to ask, and for those in our audience who still engage with us, when we say loving ourselves, what does love look like? And I don't know if you could type that in the comment section. What does love look like to you? Because sometimes it's a concept that we say you don't love me or I don't love myself. But what does love look? If you say someone is loving you or you are loving you the way you should be loved, or you're loving or someone is loving you, what would that look like? What photo, what picture would you give them to say, now this is what loving me look like? Because we talked about expectation earlier, and we just talked about loving ourselves. And knowing what it is, what it means to love ourselves. And so those who are still engaged, I just like to know if you can type, what does loving you look like? Or is it a concept merely in our mind and we really don't know what we haven't even defined love. And so I think it's hard to reach a goal if there's no goal that has been defined and that is clear and obvious. So I think if those who are still engaged, if you, what does loving you look like? When you're being loved, A, B, C is happening, or one, two, three is happening. I'd love for you to just share that with Dr. Johnson and I. What does love look like? Is this uh, I think the question is this a personal is this a personal perceptive answer? What does it look like? And I think it's important for however you hash that question out and answer it, the way that you perceive it and the way that you answer it. How what does it look like when you're being loved, man? This is what I see, when I'm being loved. And I don't know if that could change depending on who you're with or what the relationship is. It's even possible. I think sometimes we have expectations of others that we don't even know ourselves. And I think that's when, Dr. Johnson, we talk about communication being important, because sometimes we're wanting people to love us and we don't even know what loving us look like or feel like.
Yeah.
And it becomes uh, a moving target, because every time a person feels like, boy, they're loving you, it moves. And I think it is important that you communicate when the target moves, but it's also important for you to know what the target is, and it's something. So I'm hoping that someone will. Yes, it's a personal perspective. I'm hoping that someone would chime in and just give us an example of what loving them look like. And I don't think you have to be overbearing or too personal with it, but it could be surface stuff that is important, but it's important. It's not too personal or private that you couldn't share publicly. Is that when I know someone is loving me, this is what's happening, or at least one of the things that is happening, and then it becomes obvious to me that love is in the air, so to speak. Uh, but Dr. Johnson, again, when and hopefully someone will chime in a moment. And I know we have just a few more moments here today. Let's see if that's one of the. For me, it's having patience and working together. Okay, it's having patience and working together. When we look at this answer, Dr. Johnson, we says, for me, having patience and working together. This is Ebony. We can work on Ebony. Okay. Uh, when you say, for me, it's having patience. Would that patience be with everything, or would that patience be um, patience when I'm problemed, or that means you need to have patience with me when I'm just combing my hair and trying to get the last uh, piece gathered, or how deep would you go with what Ebony is saying, how surface can you go, and then how much can you take it from there to see how can we help a person who says, okay, loving me looks like when you're patient, patient how? Um,
So I think it for me, the first thing that jumps out at me is that it sounds like maybe Ebony probably values a lot of acts of service, where the person is working with her in whatever that may be, helping her to get things done or being patient enough to help her, if that makes sense. So I think maybe it's acts of service, maybe it's a little bit of words of affirmation where maybe that person should communicate that they're being patient with her, or maybe they're encouraging her to get things done. So I think that can be a variety of different things. And okay, I see Ebony said that acts of service is her primary love language.
so,
So
so, uh, and again, we're working with Ebony here, and we're going to get to a few more. So if Pete is not patient with her, um, he's on his way out. They have a meeting to go to, and he says to her repeatedly, "Let's go, let's go." It's we like to leave 30 minutes earlier for this particular thing. Is he not being patient? Is that something she would perceive not being patient or working with her? How should that? Because then relating becomes a part of it. So how do you deal with that aspect of it, or is that something to be considered? That she may feel bad because he's saying, let's go. And he's simply trying to keep the time. And she feels like he's been he's been impatient.
I think it depends on if this is something that happens often. If it is something that happens often, I think it's up to Ebony and Pete to figure out what are some things that can be done to make sure that the next time that maybe Ebony isn't running behind. So, for example, if acts of service is her love language, maybe she's late because she's had to, wash the dishes or she had to get the laundry done. So, in that conversation, maybe there's something that Pete can help Ebony with that will allow her more time to get ready for whatever it is that they have to do. Now, I'm not saying that, everything is on him to get it done, but working together would mean figuring out, okay, I notice that every time it's time for us to go out or it's time for us to attend something, you're not ready. What is it that we can do to make sure that you are ready? I see where Ebony says, teach Dr.
Yeah, you hear her. She's riding it out. I'm telling you. Pete is listening. Pete is listening, and this is not a real scenario, y'all,
Yeah.
that we're bringing up. So I don't know that happens when they're going out, but it's a good opportunity for us to learn and grow. So yes, she says teach. Pete is listening.
But no, and that's where you can have those conversations, because I don't know, maybe there is something that's preventing her from being on time. So that's where I think when Ebony speaks of patience, that patience means, or patience look like saying, okay, how can we make this better? What can I do to help you with whatever it is that's happening throughout your day that makes it difficult for you to be ready when it's time to go. And then also, I'll say this: it requires Ebony. Don't get upset with me, but it also requires Ebony to be accountable as well. It's not all on Pete, but it is on both of them to be able to communicate what it is that's happening.
Wow, that's good. I love it. Thank you, Ebony and Pete, for letting us use you all a little bit this morning. But I love it because the accountability goes both ways, and then that's when it becomes a partnership. That's when you are relating to one another. That's where communication is important because I heard you say he could ask the question. I noticed you're not ready. What can I do? And then she can also share in conversing as well with him by saying, hey, when we get ready to go, if you can help me with this, with that, I can be on time. And the accountability piece lies with both people. It's not just on one, but it's two. And there could be realistically a time that it weighs one way or the other, but majority it is something that that works together. Brother Pete says, thank you, Dr. Johnson. Now, I just had a question from uh, Phaedra here. She says, for me, love looks like having your needs met physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Um, I think, having, I think it's important to know uh, what it is. And it may seem like an exhausted list, but if you don't know, you'll never reach the height of affection that you can receive or the height of affection that you can give.
Mm-hmm.
And consequently, the things you say you desire or want, if you never communicate them or don't know what you need, you can forget anybody pleasing you or satisfying you, because if you don't know, then no one else will know. And I think when you communicate it, even if the list may seem exhaustive, I think that it gives the person an opportunity to know what they're dealing with.
Yeah, I think and that's why it's important to know, what your languages are. And looking at this list here, to me, it looks like, what she's saying is she requires all of those love languages. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with needing different things to experience the full scope of love. But I think it's also important that if there are specific things that maybe she feels is missing, and I'm not saying that she does, but I'm just saying in any type of relationship, if something is missing, that's where that communication comes in to say, because a lot of times people are comfortable showing what they're comfortable with. So if I am comfortable with words of affirmation, then I may not be as comfortable with quality time. So that's when I will need my partner or my loved one to know, okay, yes, you're doing great with the words of affirmation, but I would like for us to spend more time together. And sometimes people don't know what they don't know. So you have to share what it is that you're looking for, or you have to share what it is that you're desiring. Um, so that's why, again, that knowing your language, knowing what it is that you asked, a very important question is, what does love look like to you? What does it look like to you? So it's not going to look the same for everybody. One person may have a very short list and somebody else may have a longer list. That's fine. But you have to know what it looks like to you to even be able to translate it or to even expect it from other people.
Wow. Well, as I say, welcome to Ubu Outreach, sponsored by Life Order Inc. That's our nonprofit organization, which I am the founder, CEO, and I am so excited that we're able to bring these moments to you with Dr. Johnson, who covers every second Saturday subjects of interest. And we want to thank you all for being a part of our time together. We have on our radar also moments like this on the first Saturday of the month to deal with our young people and subjects that are of interest to them. So we ask that you will help us to promote that, and we're hoping that we can at least get something going for them that would be a benefit to them. Our adults are the second Saturday, that is 18 and above, and so we really, really appreciate you all for being a part of UBU. And today we're talking particularly about love languages, and things are cooking. And so we're thinking about what Dr. Johnson's talking about, communication as things go. But the question on the floor is, how do you know what you need, or knowing what you need? What does it look like to you? And I think here's one, Dr. Johnson. A few things are listening closer to me and trying to understand things that they're concerned about, and giving to their undivided attention for Shannon here. So when you see this, what would you communicate to someone to say, wow, this is how you do this person? If you're loving a person with these needs, here's how you do it. What do you hear her saying in regards to context, rather, of our subject, love languages?
I hear Shannon saying that quality time is important. And in quality time, that's where that undivided attention comes. That's where that communication comes in. It's where you learn what's important to that person. So quality time isn't always about, going to the movies or, going out to eat. It's really about what happens while you're doing those things, meaning what are you communicating about during dinner? Are you paying attention to what moves that person when you're watching a movie or whatever activity that you're doing? Is all about paying attention to how your loved one is being affected, or just paying attention to what they're communicating. What are they needing from you within those moments? So again, this comment is all about communication. It's all about spending that time with each other to really get to know the matters of that person's heart.
Okay, and let me ask you this, and I'll use Shannon and perhaps Brother Travis for it's quality time when and we're talking about love languages, and let's say you're talking about listening closely and so forth. Let's say you have a conversation, and I've heard people talk about when you're when you're spending that quality time, do you divvy it up to say this is the time that I want to listen to you, but I also love you enough that I wish you wouldn't worry about that now or be concerned about that now. How do you deal with from what perspective does the time become quality time opposed to times that a person is trying to be attentive, but they're also loving you enough not to want the stress, the what have you. So when does she recognize that this time is quality? If my question or comment makes sense, Dr. Johnson, if you can chime in and bring clarity to that, because if couples have the propensity that when they're together, they may only talk about the children. Now, the mother may be really concerned, or the father may be really concerned, but we talked about what is being discussed and when that time is, so that the individual can dial in and feel like this is something that is worth me showing or expressing my love for you.
Well, I think with quality time, it has to be intentional. So, and what I mean by that is if you're spending quality time with someone, but something is brought up that maybe you're not capable of addressing at that moment, or maybe it's just not a good time, I think it's important to convey why it's not a good time. But then not brushing it off, but just maybe setting aside or being intentional about addressing whatever that person's needs are when you both agree that it's okay to do. So I guess, and I hope I'm answering your question, but quality time becomes quality when you're intentional. You know, sometimes I hear people say things like, well, I eat dinner with my family every night. It's like, okay, well, that's great. Are you all talking? Are you just kind of sitting there eating on your cell phone? Because if not, I mean, if you are doing that, if you are eating but not talking, or if you are eating and texting on your phone, then maybe it's not really quality time. So the definition of quality, of course, I think it differs according to whatever your perspective is, but the quality of it has to depend on what's happening during that time. Are you really connecting with that person? Are you really communicating with that person, or are you just in each other's physical presence?
And that I think that gives to the point, giving me undivided attention at times. And I think that's why you brought up she appreciates the quality time based on that. So and that's why you bring that up because as you say, so often we think that because we're together that the time is quality or that you're getting the attention. I don't know. I've been to uh, places and you see groups together, and I don't know who the groups may be, but none of them are really talking to each other. They're together, but all of them are on an apparatus, whether it's a computer or a phone or something. They're there physically, like you said, at the dinner table. But are we actually talking? And that's what Shannon is saying, giving me your undivided attention at times, and there's no disruption in that time. It really matters. I think we have time for maybe one more concept of what that love is. And thank you all for sharing uh, with us what what it looks like to you. And I think Sister Novella had something. It's there. So uh, being respectful, caring, thoughtful, and love of yourself, knowing you are worthy. So um, if you could speak to that, because I think that I think she's saying when she knows she's being loved is when you're being respectful and caring and thoughtful. um, Dr. Johnson, maybe you can say to what Sister Novella is saying here. You can speak to what Sister Novella is saying.
It sounds like Novella is saying that when you are thoughtful, respectful, you're showing that love to yourself. And that self love is knowing that you're worthy not only to receive it from yourself, but you're worthy of receiving those things from other people. Um, because when you know that you're showing yourself these things, then you know what to expect, or you know what to define as love coming in from other people. And if these things aren't there, then it's important that you reconsider, what is it that this person is really showing me? Are they thoughtful? And which is why we have love languages, is so that people can be more thoughtful, because again, we don't know what we don't know. So it's important to know these things and really figure out, okay, how do I actually show these things? Not only to myself, but how do I show them to other people? Um, I think I can't remember who put it in the comments, but it was all about love being an act of service, um, or love being, and I think it was Tanya that said it. Yes. So, and I think that's a very powerful quote there about love being an act of service. It's action. It says love is a verb. Love gives. Love is sacrificing. And love grows. Love is understanding even when you don't understand. Communication is a key component in expressing your love and how you want to be loved. So the part there that really stands out to me is love gives. Love is sacrificing. So it's not all about you getting that love from other people, but it's about being able to give love to others as well. So love yourself. That's important. Um, Also receive love from others, but also make sure that you're giving that same love according to what that person needs from you.
Wow. Well, thank you. And Sister Novella, Sister Ebony, Sister Shannon, Phaedra, thank you all for chiming in and allowing us the opportunity to look at your concept of love. And we don't think that there's a right or wrong way or expectation of that. It's just understanding, as said here, trying to get an understanding of what needs to be understood, and communicating being that key component, and expressing your love and how you want to be loved. So thank you all for sharing that. And I think that's so important. And Dr. Johnson, you might be able to speak to this. It's so important that when we start looking at these kinds of things, for us to just realize, I don't know if there's a right or wrong. I just think there's a balance and there's an understanding, and it's all about communication. Because what your needs are, they're your needs. And I think that when they are rationed proportionately, and when they are thought of with balance, I think it leads to the peace and the joy and perhaps the happiness that each of us desire. So, Dr. Johnson, if you want to have some closing comments to everyone prior to our time of exiting, maybe to talk about what we'll be dealing with the next time we come together, and the date, I'll share, and the subject, of course, will be there. So you can chime, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you all so much for joining and participating in this discussion. I just want to reiterate that you can take the love language quiz, and it's on the screen here where you can type in just 5 love languages quiz, or you can type in the website, which is www.5lovelanguages.com. It won't take a lot of your time. I think it's a very valuable tool that will help you to really think about your love language. And at the end, it will actually rate your love languages in order. And not only do I want you to take it, but I also want you to share it. Share it with the people around you, and also encourage them to take it. And not only share it, but have a discussion. Have a discussion. You can make it interesting. You can say, can you guess what my love language is? Just to see, what that person may think. So use it as a way of just communicating, or just finding ways to really express how you want to be loved, and then also determining how do the people around you want to be loved. One last thing I wanted to share. So I put my email address here for if anyone would like to reach out. If you have any questions, you can definitely email me at erinisha.johnson@gmail.com. And I also have a platform that is on Instagram. It's also on Facebook, but Instagram is a little bit, I put a lot more on Instagram. And this is where I share mental health content every week. I choose a different topic, which this week it is about love languages. But on there, I typically post just different tips on different things. I post videos sometimes. And the whole point of it, the whole point of Therapeutic Gems is to share different tools and tips to just enhance our overall well being. So you can follow me on Instagram at Therapeutic Gems, or if you prefer Facebook, you can type it in on Facebook and join. It's just a little bit more cohesive on Instagram, but you can find me on either one of those and take a look at what's been posted. I've been posting for a little over a month now, so there are different things on there about goal planning, about depression, anxiety. This week, love languages. I think last week I spoke about suicidal ideations, and I'm planning to do different topics throughout the rest of the month. So again, thank you all so much for joining, and I'll be looking forward to our next UBU session.
Yes, well, thank you, Dr. Johnson. As she said, you can follow her on those platforms that she's mentioned. And this is really, really great because she's a licensed practicing counselor. And just tell them what your credentials are. I know we haven't listed them, but tell them what your credentials are, and so they can know. That your background provides you with the formal training to share with us the way that you've been sharing with us. So if you go ahead and just, and I know you're not being pompous, but I'd love for you to do that.
So I am a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Georgia as well as Mississippi. So that allows me to offer counseling services to both children and adults for a variety of different things. I'm also a national certified counselor, which is being a board certified counselor. And then I have a doctorate's degree in general psychology, which has allowed me to conduct research, to conduct just different projects on learning how to better serve the community when it comes to mental health or as it relates to psychology related material.
All right. Well, thank you. And as you can see, she's provided for us ways to follow her and perhaps be able to share and grow an appreciation for the content that she shares around mental health and all of the other topics or subjects that she provides for us. Again, we look forward to coming together on the 12th of March. And our goal would be to deal with communication. And we're certainly going to look forward to dealing with that subject. So if you know someone who's having perhaps a difficult time communicating, we certainly want to share concerning that subject. And so invite others to be a part of UBU Outreach and sponsored by LifeWater. And we really, really appreciate you all being a part of our time today. And Dr. Johnson, we certainly appreciate you and for you sharing with us the wonderful things that you've shared with us that helps us to know our love languages and certainly to get us to a place that we know how to love ourselves and how to expect to be loved, and then how to love others as well. And all those things are important. Again, to all of our friends around the globe, from Arizona to I don't know. I know Georgia. There's several people joining us from around. So thank you for being a part of UBU Outreach, and we're looking forward to even greater moments of sharing as time allows us. And so again, Dr. Johnson, thank you so very, very much. I'd love for you all to just, if you don't mind, to just type in the comment section a word of encouragement to Dr. Johnson for sharing with us today. If you'll just take a moment to type in, I like to do this when we're closing sessions out. If you'll just, some things that help you today, something that helped you. We're talking about something that helped you. If you share something that helped you, and appreciate her. So if you'll do that, to say, this helped me, and say what it was in short, and then appreciate her for sharing with us out of the wealth of knowledge that God has allowed her to have, and to convey that to us in a way that we understand and perhaps can apply them to our everyday lives. So we'll just wait till those comments come in. Again, it's March 12th. Our goal is for March 5th, Saturday, March 5th. Our goal is to have some content for youth. And so if you have youth that's 17, between 12 and 17, on the first Saturday of March, we really would love to have this space with them, and share with them in this space concerning the topic. And within the next few days, we'll let you know what that topic is, or did we have one determined already, Dr. Johnson, for our young people?
I would still love to do the bullying. I know
All
that
right.
we talked about before, but just working with them on um, if they're being bullied, or how to recognize signs of being bullied, or just being able to figure out different ways to ask for help when it comes to that.
Okay. So bullying on the first, if you feel like you have a young 12 to 17, that would really, really help that young person, ages 12 to 17. We certainly would love for you to invite them to be a part of UBU on the first Saturday. So if y'all help me to promote that, the first Saturday, and then from ages 18 and above will be the second Saturday. So that's March 5th. 17 and to 12 to 17, and then from 18 and above, that's March 12th. And so we love for you to help us to promote that, to bring people into this space. And what an outreach, and what a benefit to those who gets to show up to a platform from someone who is practicing counseling and therapy and etc. So this is a great opportunity for development, a great opportunity for growth, a great opportunity for help. It's a great opportunity for outreach. And so again, we really, really appreciate you being a part of our time together. We're waiting on a few more of you to tell us what it is that you gained today, and your appreciation for Dr. Johnson. I know you're typing, and so we're going to give you a few moments to do that as we again give you updates on UBU Outreach from Life Water Inc. It's our nonprofit arm and organization that I founded in 2006, and also that has been one that has sought to reach out and help bring hope to humanity by connecting with our community. And this is one way in which we are attempting to do that. Your Auntie Tanya says, thank you, Dr. Johnson, for sharing your gift and training skills with us. Self-awareness is vital for a healthy life, mentally and spiritually. Keep doing what God's created you to do.
Thank you.
And this is from Ebony. She says, thank you, Dr. Johnson. The part about love language changing with age and experience really helped me, because my primary is still the same, but love languages have changed. So now I know that I didn't take the quiz wrong. just what is important has changed over time. So thank you, Sister Ebony, for sharing what you gleaned.
It's so important. I mean, because like I said earlier, things mine have changed. My primary is the same, but the ones underneath that have shifted. So it's really interesting, to think about what may have changed over the years to make that happen. So no, you definitely didn't take it wrong. It's just like you said, things have changed for you.
And while we're waiting on one more comment, one more thank you, one more appreciation, Dr. Johnson, if a person has 4 of them all in the 20s, is something wrong with that person?
No,
That's me, of course, but
no, it just means that they
that's your uncle. Something may be wrong with your uncle. I don't know.
no, it just means that you have a balance, that you value different things from different ones equally. And that's okay.
So I kind of need everything.
Yeah. That's okay. I like to tell people, because I've had people say, well, should one be higher than the other? Well, no, maybe you're just a well-rounded person, and not saying that people that don't have them close together aren't well-rounded, but it's just that maybe there are different needs in different areas that complete you. So no, so there's nothing wrong with that.
Look at Ebony. Look at Ebony. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And then look at that. Everything. Now you see why I need a seat on the proverbial couch. But yes, but we're so thankful for everything, Dr. Johnson. We really appreciate it. Again, thanks to everyone for being a part of UBU Outreach Life Order Inc. Every second Saturday, ages 18 and above, and then every first Saturday, it will be ages 12 to 17. Okay, there's another one of my members who says, you're needy, Pastor May. You see how they're coming at me? They call me needy and all of that.
They have different needs. That's okay.
All right. And here's the other one we were waiting on. Here it is while we were enjoying each other. Explaining each love language in detail really helped me to recognize what my love language is. Taking the test again today. All right. So thank you for that. We appreciate that, Sister Shannon, for sharing that with us. All right. Well, again, let's see. They still coming in on me, I believe. Okay. they're still coming in on me, but thank you, Dr. Johnson, again. Thank you to everyone for being a part of our time together today. What a blessing we had this opportunity to share and to be able to learn about love language in the love month, so to speak, in the love month. Again, follow Dr. Johnson on IG, and she's also available for other needs. And I think your information has been provided before, but you can use the platform you provided to reach out to her if you need, her professional services. And I'm sure she'll explain to you. She takes insurance. I think you explained that to us first time we met. She takes insurance, self-pay, what have you. So please, and then we're just grateful that she comes to this space, and it doesn't cost you anything, but you get the chance, as she says, to get to know the person who perhaps that you would have giving or offering any therapy or counseling to you. So you get a chance to hear her thoughts and concepts and precepts and values and approach, etc. So Dr. Johnson, thank you for helping us and being available for UBU Outreach, Life Order Inc. Life Order is all about bringing hope to humanity by connecting with our community. And we hope we've somehow connected with you today. So until we meet again, as always, I pray that the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Ghost be with you all. So God bless you, and we look forward to seeing you in the morning, and we pray peace to each of you. Oh, here's another one. All right, that's from Florida. She's from Florida. She missed it. She says, I'm here late, so I missed it all, but will catch the replay. Severe headache wouldn't let up. So we're going to be praying for you and hoping that headache let up. And I'm sure you're going to be blessed when you hear the replay. But thank you for letting us know that you thought of us and that you're going to go back and take a look at it. So again, I hope that today is the most blessed day of each of your lives. So look forward to seeing you later.